Yes, this isn't the same place that we were podcasting from on Thursday. I had to take the show on the road. I apologize for any technical difficulties. I know we're a little late in getting started today. I am expecting Ryan possibly jumping on. I need to text him. I was having some difficulty. If you're trying to get us at Rumble, it's not going to happen. Hopefully you've realized that. And we are on YouTube, uh, Facebook, and X. That's the best I could do today. Uh, I did want to not. I did want to come to you today to make sure that we talk about a few things that I just experienced. I mean, it is just knock it out of the park type of information today in regards to the state convention. I had the opportunity to be there Friday and Saturday, and wow, I just have to say wow, because it's been a long road for those of us who have been really hoping and wanting Illinois to make a move in a direction outside of where the state has been going for the last 40 years, 40, 50 years. And that finally we saw a glimmer of hope, a glimmer of fire, a little spark at the Illinois State Convention. And that's what I'm going to cover today. Once again, appreciate you always coming and joining me. I know this is going to be a little difficult. I was trying to set it up on some type of little pod, but it's not going to be the best angle. Let me see if I can adjust it here to see if it does anything here. Yeah, I think I'm almost there. Bear with me. I'm going to get it. But I appreciate you guys coming on board. I think I've got a stand here that I can utilize. Here we go. Let's see if I can move me around. I know this is kind of awkward, but the best I can do with the circumstances I have. But you got to adapt. You got to overcome. So once again, as I was saying, had the opportunity to be at the Illinois State Convention, Illinois Republican State Convention on Friday and Saturday. It started out, once again, the same old song and dance. I was hopeful that by going, it was the first time I ever had attended the state convention. In 2020, they canceled it due to the coronavirus and everything going on with that, which, once again, is a whole different topic, whole different show. But I went there wanting, I should say, needing, I think that's a better word, needing to see that the Republican Party could finally move the needle in a direction away from 40 years of losing. We have lost, I understand there are some gains that we have had through different legislative districts, congressional districts. Even the Bailey movement was a very big positive thing. We showed the establishment Republican Party that we could put together a mass movement outside of the realm of the party. And that's what I was hopeful for, right? Being at this now since 2017, when I made a decision to run against an incumbent, an establishment Republican in Dan Brady, and then in 2020, same thing, and then getting on board with Darren Bailey and the Bailey movement, I knew that there was potential for the people to rise up and to take charge, to take back territory. You know what? You heard me say it many times that the Democrats aren't going to give back anything. What they have taken, they're not going to give back. We're going to have to fight for it. We're going to have to go back and take it from them. But until we can do that, we need to be unified. It's funny. You hear a lot about unification and coming together in the Republican Party, specifically from the people in charge. And for the most part, the people in charge are the establishment party. And that was the essence of the Darren Bailey movement and the Darren Bailey campaign. You know this to be true that Darren had to take on the establishment in order to win the gubernatorial nomination. Very few people taking on the establishment have they been able to win that. If you need any insight to that, go back to the show that I did with Tom DeVore and Darren Bailey. There's great insight. And no, this isn't meant to be negative. It's funny. Little side note. There's a particular Central States Committee person that I encountered down at Collinsville at the state convention that wanted to give me a hard time. Basically, he said, "I don't like what you said about my boss." Oh, that was a little Freudian slip. About my boss, Mike Bost. You know, I was taken back by the fact that he's bringing it up, because I thought we were supposed to be getting beyond any of the elections that have taken place and moving forward. Now that we're closing in on 150 days from the start of early voting. Actually, it's less than that. It's 150 days till the election day. It's now less than that. You give or take, let's see, it's 40 days of voting. So it's 110 days. We're closing in on 100 days before early voting starts, where we have an opportunity to stop the destruction of our country. And this particular young man, who happens to sit on the Central States Committee, and a young man, and like I said, I have nothing personally against him, but I found it odd that he would bring this up. And he goes, "Oh, I guess we're supposed to be unifying. I don't like what you said about my boss. I mean, my boss, Mike Boss." And I wanted to ask him, and I didn't, and I should have. What did I say that wasn't true? Because, I've shared with you guys, if I'm saying something that isn't true, let me get the comments section turned on here real quick. I know that I don't have that on yet. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Comments, Jordan. I would love to come on your show sometime, Dave. Thank you, Jordan. There you are, Jordan. Appreciate it. If there's something that I'm saying on these podcasts that isn't true, I want to be held accountable. So I guess I would charge you with that. If this gets back to you, Miles, his name is Miles. I want to be transparent. I want to have these open conversations, because that's what the state convention was about. If I'm saying something isn't untrue, as it's titled, we need to take care of our own house. We need to clean up our own house. If we're going to, it's funny, another common theme, and I know I'm jumping all over the place because I'm amped up because of what transpired at the Illinois State Convention. If, it's said over and over, we got to stop fighting one another and fight Democrats. Well, we can't begin to fight the Democrats if we don't have a game plan, a battle strategy, a battle plan. If we don't have a means of taking on the Democrats, then how are we ever going to recapture, take back the territory that we've lost in the state of Illinois and the ground that we have given up over 40 years? Once again, it's been 40 years. I know that Tom DeVore on his Facebook page said it's only been 20 years, but that's not true. 37 years of Madigan, and I covered that in the last show, with power, privilege, and politics. Mike Madigan had a stranglehold on politics in the state of Illinois, the land of Lincoln, which is now under the guidance of J.B. Pritzker, has been deemed the land of make-believe, because everything this guy talks about is made up. It's a lie. He hasn't been able to tell the truth about anything. But in order for us to take on the Democrats, we have to have a battle strategy. That's part of the theme of Surus, who my particular county has contracted with the operation, the people of Surus, and we are diligently going through the steps of really trying to influence everything at the precinct level. And there's a lot of moving pieces. And yes, it's not easy by any means. But then again, this isn't going to be easy. In order to win elections, in order to restore Illinois, in order to take back the territory we have lost, we're going to have to do things well beyond our scope. And we're going to have to do things well beyond the resources we have. because we do not have the resources of the Democrat Party. The leader of the Democrat Party, J.B. Pritzker, is able to put in 10 times more money than we have as a party. And it's really sad. And once again, I don't know how we fix that. We don't have a billionaire who is the governor. We had somebody who was close in Rauner. Unfortunately, Rauner wasn't really operating under the Republican platform. He had his own hybrid of what he believed the Republican Party should be. In fact, that's the resignation or the residual effect of where we find ourselves today. It was the Rauner Republicans, similar to the Bush Republicans, similar to the Mitt Romney Republicans, similar to the John McCain Republicans, that we're finding that we're dealing with here in the state party. And once again, this isn't about fighting other Republicans, because I would challenge other Republicans to truly ask ourselves, are we living up to the Republican platform as it is laid out by the RNC? RNC meaning the Republican National Committee. I'm going to get into a little bit more of that here shortly, because the Republican National Committee is the entire essence of what transpired down at the Illinois State or the Illinois Republican State Convention. But we have to ask ourselves these questions. So in order to create a battle plan, to create a game plan, to create a forward-looking growth plan for the Republican Party and the Republican way here in Illinois, we're going to have fights. And that's what we had on Saturday down at Collinsville. It was rumored that it was going to be a drag-out convention. What was I trying to say? A knockdown, drag-out convention, and it was. It lived up to its billing. I'm thankful for the people that were able to make it to the convention. An interesting point: there were about 465 people registered for the convention. 465. I should say delegates registered. There are probably more than that registered, but 465 delegates. That doesn't mean all those delegates were precinct committee people or elected officials. But what this does mean is they were eligible to vote on the floor if a vote was taken. So knowing that little factoid, the question I kept asking everyone down there when it comes to precinct committee men is how many? This should be a very easy number to come up with. Every county clerk has now sent out the documentation for every precinct committee person, township person, or ward person who is a precinct committeeman. And I'd say precinct committeeman because when you're a ward or a township, you have a different name. So how many delegates could there have been in total? Joanne, that's a good question. Let me finish this thought about the precinct committee people. In McLean County, we could have had 25. We registered 13. We have, I think it's in excess of 10,500 precincts. And now I'm, once again, interchangeable because in townships and wards, they don't call them precincts. They call them wardsmen or something like that. In townships, they call them township persons. In counties, they call them precinct committee people. So if we know there's roughly 10,500 positions that are held by people who do the duties of precinct committeemen, how many do we have by going to each one of those authorities, whether it be a township, ward, or county clerk, and find out how many people were elected in this last go-around, the primary of 2022? Then we would have a number of precinct committeemen. But you would think that the leader of the Republican Party, those that are in the administrative level, would have that number down. I don't claim to have all the answers, but one of the things I do claim to be very resolute about is understanding where we are before we can truly get a guidance in where we're going to go. If we don't know where we're at and who's on the field, then how can we field a team? As I said, I don't have a problem being on the bench as long as I know the people out there that aren't on the bench are fielding and hitting. And if they're not fielding and hitting, then I want to make sure that we are replacing them. And that's what kind of happened at the convention. And I'm going to get to that. I know that I'm kind of going all over the place, and I'm super excited. And thank you guys for joining me. So, getting to your question, Joanne, how many delegates could there have been in total? Well, for instance, you take the total amount of people that voted in a county or in a township or in a ward, and you divide that by 500. That will give you the number. In McLean County, 41 out of, oh, hold on, I'll put that up on the screen, Joanne. In McLean County, only 41 of the 142 were elected this last election. Exactly. We know our numbers. In fact, that's what CERUS is helping us do in McLean County and in other counties. It's just not McLean County. I think they're in close to 28 counties. Joanne, correct me if I'm wrong now. They've got like 40% of the state covered, maybe more, because they're gaining momentum because they're one of the only groups, organizations that's truly attacking. As I said, this is a fight. We're not going to win the fight by compromising and asking the Democrats to give us back the territory they took from us. They're just going to be unwilling, and they're going to continue to laugh in our faces. In fact, they're not even going to find it interesting at all, because we can't even field some of the basic questions about how to create a forward-looking growth plan or a battle plan, which we've done now. And I don't want to give too much of that away, because ultimately the Democrats don't sit around and give their things away. Hey, Ryan, were you not able to get that email? I sent you an email. I didn't know if you wanted to jump on. Oh, hold on. You are on. Okay, I got you. I got to add you to the stage. I'm sorry. Kick from studio, ban from studio. I'm not going to ban you from studio. I'm looking at the option. I'm doing this from my phone. Add would be the one.
Hey,
Ban you from the studio.
I might say some controversial things that might get me banned. I don't know.
Well, Ryan, I'm glad. I mean, this, like I said, this is kind of crazy. Going back to Joanne's comment here,
Yeah.
and I'm glad we can have this discussion, because we need to have this discussion. I wish I could get more and more people involved in this discussion. So go out there, like and share the DPB show. In fact, I'm thinking about doing away with the DPB show, because really, it's not about me. And we'll work on that, right? Because we've got to do something different. In fact, I proposed, Joanne, to CJ Gallo from CERUS, that CERUS do something like this on a consistent basis, especially coming out of that convention. County and township organization, northern townships are as big as some counties. Well, exactly. When you've got a county like Cook and you have, 3-4 million people, you can't divide that up as a county. You got to divide it up into little increments, and then the precincts or the townships are involved, and the wards are part of that. But still, that doesn't mean we can't get a definitive number, because as far as I know, Joanne, and you might be able to lead us into more of a discussion on this, is that the Illinois State Board of Elections has to certify every one of those ballots. Those have to be turned into the state. All of those individuals are recorded as an elected official. So there's got to be some way of getting that number. And so, getting back to your original question, Joanne, how many delegates could there have been in total? Well, the total number of people who voted in a primary, in whether it be a county, township, or ward, divided by 500, that would give you the total. I have to believe, for instance, in McLean County, it was 25. If you have Chicago, that number could easily have been the total number. I mean, it probably is well beyond the 465 delegates that were present. I want to talk about the vote that took place, Ryan. And you can tell, Ryan, this is mind-boggling. If you guys really want to see some insight to what took place, go to Illinois Review. They did a decent job of covering it. The Chicago Tribune wrote a little piece about it, but my friend Tom DeVore, obviously, go and look at Tom DeVore's page. He will cover it. Darren Bailey hit upon it a little bit. Dean White has covered it a little bit. But you have to get an essence of the process. And that's the sad part. We in McLean County, my home county, we are working on perfecting the process, getting the numbers that we need, knowing the data, knowing the metrics. That's how you move the needle. That's the modern world we live in. This whole thing of sitting back and hoping that you get out the vote on
Mm-hmm.
election day. If you're working on winning elections on elections day, you've lost the
Yeah,
election.
you lost it weeks in advance, right? I mean, that's what election day has become.
Yep.
Election season.
So, yes, a lot out there, a lot happening in my life, and this was just part of it. I'm still planning, and part of everything that went on at the state convention was also kind of. It's interesting because you have your ground game, right? That's where all of this is at. When we talk about precinct committee people or ward representatives or township representatives, we're talking about the ground game. Within the ground game, there is a higher level of the ground game, and that's the state. The overarching is the state, and then over the state is the national. So I was also there at the convention as a representative, Donald J. Trump, as a alternate delegate, which I had put my name in to be a delegate at large and strictly to up the ante for my credentials when I'm on the floor, or when I go to the convention, in order to gain access to the floor, which that in of itself was another committee. Yours truly did not realize enough votes from the committee. But imagine this, the people who did, they were all elected officials.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. Imagine
Backdoor deals, right?
backdoor deal. You know what? I would bode to say this, and I'm not trying to be pretentious here, and I'm not trying to braggadocious, but I guarantee you there wasn't. I would say there might have been 2 or 3 people at the convention this past weekend that had a visit from the FBI, and you know, it's mind-boggling that people who had the feds at their door in regards to January 6th.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That somebody like myself, couldn't raise the level of participation at the RNC. I believe I'm all in for Donald Trump. I've proven it. I don't have to go and sell that to anybody, and nor did I look for Donald Trump to give me any, acknowledgement or accolades or anything. That's not what it's about. This is about saving the country. And I believe that's what Donald Trump is about. I'm going to get behind somebody who is about the things that I believe in. And I believe that's what the people believe in. And that was demonstrated. So I want to lay this scenario out because we're already at 23 minutes, and I know I'm super charged up here.
Let's get the drama of what happened.
In the matrix. Okay. So, and this is hard to understand, and I know I'm going to have to do an entire show to walk you through it. So I've shared with you that you've got the ground game is the precinct committee people. They in turn have a convention at their local level. They vote on their board, their local board. So we have a McLean County board in my county. The Rock Island County has a Rock Island County board. Cook County has a Cook County board, but they also have a township board, and they have awards and everything. Mm-hmm. It's Chicago. If you can make sense of Chicago, one of the most corrupt cities in the world, good luck. That's another side note. And this is part of cleaning up the corruption and the brokenness. So you have the election of your boards, but you also, the precinct committee people are the people who elect their central states committee people. So each congressional district has a central states committee person. I happen to live in the 17th congressional district. That's why I'm a delegate for Trump in the 17th congressional district. Each congressional district has a central states committee. That central states committee is the committee that makes up every meeting that happens at the state convention, whether it's the platform, whether it's rules committee, whether it's the
Mm-hmm.
RNC chair. And I can break that down. I can at a different time.
Yeah.
I'm going to hone in on the RNC chair man from Illinois and the chairwoman from Illinois. Not as big of a contention over the chairwoman. I think there were two candidates. I know one of them very well. Um, she is our new chairwoman. That
Mm-hmm.
that the vote passed. So once again, unity, unity, unity. I'm standing behind Rhonda Belford because she is the Republican National Committee chairwoman of Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to that meeting that took place on Friday, it is a panel of those 17 congressional seats or Central States Committee. Now, each States Committee person could appoint somebody to sit in on their behalf, which they did because, once again, if you're a Central States Committee person, you
Mm-hmm.
can't sit on 5 different panels.
Right.
So you have to find some help. This particular panel, um, and this is where the drama goes in, there are 3 candidates for the RNC chairman, 2 candidates for the chairwoman. We're going to leave the chairwoman out of this because that was decided. It's interesting because there is a twist to the chairman because
Mm-hmm.
once that committee makes a decision, they try to bring it before the delegates as one ruling on
Right.
chairman and chairwoman.
Mm-hmm.
This time around, and I don't know if it's happened before, I think it did, Dimitra Dematra, who is the outgoing Republican National Committee woman, said it happened in '08. There was a discrepancy, so they actually decided to separate it out on the floor. Rhonda Belford unanimously, not I'm not going to say unanimously, but she was the voice vote resounding
Yeah.
for her to be the national committee person. That didn't happen until the second time that they brought it back to the delegates. The initial meeting on Friday, and I know if this is hard to follow, believe me, go to DeVore's page, go to
Yeah.
some.
He broke it down really well. What was going on?
He did a great job. Tom obviously is very insightful, and he's a lawyer. I mean, golly, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm trying to do it from the laity standpoint, from a novice standpoint. It was my
Yeah.
first convention, right? Soon I'm going to be in my first national convention in July. So this committee decided to go ahead and move forward, but immediately there was an objection before the meeting got started because one of the applicants for Republican National Committeeman, this Vince Colburn, uh, who happened to be on the Finance Committee, uh, submitted an incomplete application
Mm.
for the committeeman position.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the past, there was a gentleman standing right there in the room that was thrown off of the committee because he didn't have the sufficient documentation for him
Right.
to
It's part of the rules. You have to follow the rules. Yeah.
follow the rules.
Mm-hmm.
So
Unless you know somebody, right?
unless you booked, but anyhow, Vince was able to stay by a vote
Mm-hmm.
of I can't remember. It was like 11-6 or 12-5 or something like that. So Vince got an opportunity to present. And at first I thought, well, Vince might get the most votes here today because now they broke the rules,
Mm-hmm.
adhere to the rules, and they allowed this guy to stay on. Well, he didn't. He got 3 votes. He got the fewest votes when they took the vote. After each applicant was able to make a presentation, Mark Shaw, Dean,
Right. Dean White. Yeah.
and Vince Colbert. So the guys made their pitch. Dean White came in. He was third, and he basically just laid he just leveled the ground and saying, this is a farce, this
Mm-hmm.
travesty, this isn't representative, this is a cooked process. We already know who's going to win, and he was
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
Because after the fact, I found out more inside baseball, and he was right. Dean was right. There's no question about it. Needless to say, the first vote was Mark Shaw had 10 votes, Dean had 4, Vince
Mm-hmm.
had 3. Therefore, Mark Shaw was the candidate.
Right.
Rhonda Belford over, I can't remember the gal's name that she was opposed. It was a 9-8 vote.
Mm-hmm.
The second vote for Rhonda, when they had to go back to committee, was 11-6. So she had a resounding
Mm-hmm. Now,
advantage.
what do you have to get the majority to secure it?
You had to have,
Okay.
you had to have 9.
Okay.
So, stay with me on this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Just for others who aren't paying attention.
in the interim, Dean White, brilliant in his business savvy,
Mm-hmm.
he provided lunch to anyone that was at the convention at a Mexican restaurant, which was literally across the parking lot from the
Yep.
convention. I'm going to tell you, Ryan, he ran it from 11 to 3 on Friday. And if you wanted a Dos Equis, which is a brand of beer, Mexican,
Mm-hmm.
you could get yourself a cold beer. Now, if you wanted a margarita, you had to pay $5.
Mm-hmm.
But he had a buffet line, great Mexican food. But the place was packed.
Oh, I
And
bet.
it was basically appealing to people to say, listen, guys, we're never going to realize any change in Illinois politics,
Mm-hmm.
particularly in the Republican Party, if we don't change.
Yep.
In order for things to change, we must change. In order for things to get better, we must get better.
Yep. He's absolutely right.
And and so this was happening. People were working. They were petitioning county chairs, or proxy voters, which I was a proxy voter on behalf of McLean County, the McLean County Republican Party, because our chair had his son's wedding on Saturday and was not able to attend the convention. And I would say kudos to a man who chooses family over politics, because
Yep.
politics is sick and it's broken in Illinois. So good for Dennis. But he had this luncheon, and I got to check the comments here real quick here. County Township, Joanne says county and township organization, northern townships are as big as some counties. Okay, I've caught up with that.
Yep.
Okay. Wanted to make sure that you guys, because this is what the show's about. I don't care how many if I'm only talking to one other person, maybe even Ryan, this is important because I know it has legs.
Mm-hmm.
The show gets played over and over again, many different times in many different ways. So he had this restaurant packed, petitioning county chairs or county proxy convention chairs to sign a document, because this is rare that this happens, looking to get enough of people interested so we could revote the Republican National Committeemen. Well, they had 56 counties signed,
Mm-hmm.
and they brought in all the powers and the lawyers and everything of people that deal with these things, and they were able to get it knocked down to like 46 somehow, somewhere, on technicalities once again.
Yeah.
However, what they couldn't get away from was the influence that was going to have on the floor. So when they came to the floor, the convention, and asked for the delegates to give an up or down vote on their decision, there was electricity that took place. And I mean the no's. In fact, the vote before was on the rules committee, and the people were already amped up and they were screaming no to the rules committee, which had nothing to do with what they were in opposition of, but they were going to voice it. But the no's for the rules committee outdistanced the ayes, and the nays outdistanced the ayes, and the chair went ahead and said the ayes have it. And of course, the place lit up, because now,
I bet.
oh my gosh, this guy's crooked.
Yeah.
Here, take a standing vote. I was yelling from the floor, call the vote, because we want a fair process.
Oh yeah.
We're going to have fair elections, fair and free elections. Then we have to be able to duplicate that at our own. Once again, we got to get our own house in order. You don't want us to fight Republicans? Then let's start acting like Republicans.
Yep.
and transparent about the processes. So anyhow, he said the eyes have it, and of course the place was up for grabs. So they're waiting. So he rolls out the rules, or the RNC chair and chairwoman position, and instantly the ayes were tried to be loud, but the nays were just so.
Mm-hmm.
They had to call for a standing vote. You had to hold up your delegate badge, and I think the first vote was 300 and something to 100 and something. It was like a 3-1 advantage. So back to committee they went. Because Vince Colburn only got 3 votes the first time around, and the second time around, when they took a vote, it was Mark Shaw 8, Dean White 8, Vince Colburn 1. They were able to get rid of Vince. There was a motion made by the committee and seconded and voted on to remove Vince. So now it's a two-way race. They go ahead and take a vote, and it's 9-8. And now they have to go back to the floor. But interesting enough, the seed was already planted by by committee member, Central States Committee member Aaron Delmar, who, if you recognize that name, Aaron Delmar was Gary Rabine's lieutenant governor candidate,
right,
against Darren Bailey. Needless to say, Aaron's very involved, and Aaron's a very dynamic young guy, and he definitely has a big future in front of him. I don't know what that is, but Aaron does a very good job. But anyhow, Aaron mentioned this, and many people concurred with him. It doesn't matter what we decide on this committee.
Yep.
We already know that Mark Shaw doesn't have the floor.
Mm-hmm.
He can't get the floor vote.
Yep.
We're basically just
spinning the wheels. Yeah.
We're doing what the Republicans have done for 40 years. The definition of insanity.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Yep.
So sure enough, back out to the floor they go. And, the place is buzzing now, because I believe it was also their hopes, because this thing was supposed to wrap up at 3.
Mm-hmm.
People would leave, and then they could run this through. So sure enough, the second standing delegate vote, 314 to 107.
Oh my gosh.
Chairman
awesome.
Don Tracy, the chair of the GOP, the state GOP, asked for the 2 candidates for committee chairperson to, also, let me back up a little bit. That's where a motion was made before they came back for that second vote. They had motioned that they could separate out the chairwoman and the chairman, because obviously not fair to Rhonda Belford in any instance. Right. She would be bunched in with a guy that didn't have the votes. Rhonda had the votes, so they didn't even have to do a standing count for Rhonda. So once they separated it out, they went ahead and did the chairwoman first. And it was, like I said, I'm not going to say unanimous, but pretty close. I didn't hear anybody objecting to Rhonda Belford as the chairwoman. So that was a done deal. Now the chairman, and that's where we know the count was 314 to 107. So Chairman Tracy asked, and when I say Chairman Tracy, he is the chairperson of the state party,
right?
Republican National Committee chairperson, which is what this vote was about. So he asked Dean White, candidate White, and candidate Shaw to come together and see if they could come up with an amicable solution. Well, that was tough. They went back into committee. The committee ended up being, it was either 10-7 or 11-6. I'd have to go back and look at that. But now Dean White got the votes. Mark came in, Mark Shaw, and he's the one who basically conceded that he was taking himself out of the running, and therefore asking people to vote for Dean White. And sure enough, that's how we ended up with
which is the grown-up thing to do. If you know you don't have the votes on the floor, then you need to concede. I mean, that's kind of fair. Get this over with.
So
Grassroots won out.
Grassroots won out. So basically, the moral of the story is this. I have been pretty adamant about where I am. As much as I would like to flee Illinois, I know
Hmm.
Bongino tells people to get out of blue states, specifically get out of blue cities like New York and
Yeah.
Chicago, because your chances are slim and none. Um, my wife and I were planning on leaving Illinois. We really were. Last year, we sold our house. Many of you know that, especially people who are following the DPB show. Soon, hopefully, to be renamed, because once again, I'm really giving consideration to this. This isn't about me, because ultimately, if we don't win in November,
Hmm.
it's all for naught. Um, if Trump doesn't take the White House back, the Democrats are going to go all in on
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
communist manifesto item they have. And if you believe it's a socialist manifesto, it's not. It's a communist manifesto. What they are wanting to do to this country, they want to destroy the American way, the American dream, the Constitution. They have no regard for our Constitution or the American people. In fact, yeah, that's all documented. I don't have to cover that. But um, so I'm seriously giving consideration to renaming the DPB show to something else, because it's about you guys. We need you. But as I was saying, I was about ready to leave, to be one of these people who self deports out of the state of Illinois.
Hmm.
And God has led me not to leave. I don't know what God has in store, and believe me, my wife and I are praying fervently
Hmm.
for the voice of God to speak to us. And I think the voice of God has. He continues to say over and over, stand and fight. It is so easy to bail. And yes, does it appear that we are outnumbered,
Oh, yeah.
outfinanced? Of course. But so was Gideon. That's why I believe this isn't our 1776 moment. This is our Gideon moment. This is where a handful of people are going to be bold enough to put their faith and trust in God, that he is going to see a way to restore this state. And
Hmm.
restoring Illinois, Illinois is the linchpin of the rest of the United States. We are at the crossroads. We are at the center of this country, the heartland of this country. That's why Illinois looks like a heart in the middle of the map of the United States of America, because we are the heartland. We are the pulse of this nation. And so fighting is what I'm going to do. This was obviously the reason I was at the convention, Ryan. It was an affirmation. It was a
Hmm.
sign from God
Yeah.
that this victory is going to build and build and build. This is why I took on Dan Brady,
Hmm.
because Dan Brady's not a nice guy. Okay,
Right.
stop the stuff, because I don't care if Dan's a nice guy.
Yeah.
I don't care if a person's a good person. What I care, I mean, I hope they are.
Right.
But really, what it's all about is we have been on the tail end of every political decision in Illinois for the past 40 years.
Hmm.
And look where it's gotten us.
Yep.
Abortion, taxpayer funded abortion on demand, no matter if you're a citizen of the Illinois or not.
Yep.
We are one of the highest tax states in the union. When you take cumulative taxes, meaning sales tax, real estate tax, income tax, you know, under the Madigan era back in 2017, that's the reason of the gridlock with Rauner and the budget impasse, was because, oh, by the way, interesting little factoid. Do you know what the state budget was during that impasse? Take a guess on how many billions of dollars they were looking to pass that particular year. Anybody in the chat?
Hmm. I'm going to say 20, 25,
Yeah, it was under
25 billion.
30 billion.
Yeah.
A year later, Darren Bailey's first year as state representative, it was 34 billion. Do you know what they just passed here this past weekend?
54.
It was close to 54 billion.
Yeah.
So in a matter from 28 to 2024, 6 years, we've added $20 billion to spending in the state of Illinois. But I digress. Let me go
Yeah.
back.
Yep.
point. When I started this process, and I don't care about the personalities. I don't care about the fact that Dan Brady shows up at every event and pancake
Yeah,
breakfast.
it's about new leadership. That's what it is.
It is about people who are committed to the people of Illinois, the
Absolutely.
million plus people, of the sixth largest state in the union. It used to be the fifth largest state until this debacle started.
Mhm.
Used to be ahead of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania leapfrog ahead of us. If we don't believe we're the sixth largest state, JB, then why is it that we lost a congressional seat in Illinois? It's because we lost population. That's documented. Stop lying.
Yep.
Tell the truth. This is part. I get it. I expect the Democrats to lie. I don't expect Republicans to lie.
Yeah.
Therefore, going forward, and my renewed sense of hope for the future of Illinois is what transpired at the Illinois State or the Illinois State or the Illinois Republican State Convention. I get it all out there. The Illinois Republican Convention is that we now have moved the needle finally, and we're doing that at the party
Yeah.
level and at the ground level in each one of these districts, wards, townships, counties. People are rising up. I think that what's going to resonate out of that is, I bet you this, Ryan, the next time we convene as a convention in 2028, I'm going to make a wager. If we're still here, hopefully Christ returns and we go to the
Yeah.
eternal bliss of heaven.
Yeah.
But if we're here still in 2028, I believe that convention will be 5 times the number, maybe 10 times the number.
Oh, absolutely.
The excitement. What transpired there was a Gideon moment.
Mhm.
Shot heard around the world, or at least a shot heard around Illinois. The shot has been fired.
Yep.
And that's the cool thing about it.
That's what we've been talking about, right? All politics are local. You're not going to be able to enforce change unless you start locally. It took everybody that was against the grain of the establishment party, part of the party, and to say no. You have to stand in your ground and believe in what you say and do and hold your ground. And they held their ground, and look what happened. You have to be able to push back against the elite and the establishment wing of the party to
Yeah.
have any success.
I know that today's show, obviously, not in my normal studio, doing this from a family member's home.
But it looks good.
Well, the background,
Yeah.
I'm here off of Lake Jefferson, and I could get used to this. But once again, eventually, I've got to return to Illinois. I'm not in the state. I know I didn't flee a blue state for a red state. I fled a blue state for a blue state, and this state is just the same condition as Illinois in a lesser sense, because they don't have Chicago, one of the corrupt cities, but they do have a big city that is fairly corrupt. And that's what we're finding, is this corruption really exists in these major cities: New York, Los Angeles, Denver. In Texas, there's the the subtleness of the wokeism
Yeah.
kind of infiltrating the entire state. But I see got Annette Thompson's comment up there. It was awesome. She is one of the delegates and in attendance at the state convention from McLean County, and I know that's what I mean. Debbie, thank you. Hold on, let me get Debbie's comment up there. One giant step to freedom in Illinois from establishment. She is right, and I want to reiterate something, Ryan. I heard it over and over and over again from the Central States Committee and the establishment. I call them the administrative Republicans. I don't get into the calling rhino I'm just about the establishment. People doing the same thing over and over again. That's what I said. I don't care who's in the field. Are you hitting and are you fielding? And if you're not, I mean, we can weigh that. Right now, we are in super minorities on both sides of the General Assembly.
Yep.
So This isn't about the people or personalities. Believe me, I'm so past that. I don't care who you are. Don Tracy, I had a conversation with Don Tracy about election integrity and the
Mhm.
committee I was on, but I couldn't bring myself to get back on that committee. You know why? After being on it for a few months, I realized we weren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm not into circular logic or being on the same stupid ride over and over again. At some point you get off the ride,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
You say, boy, the carousel just goes round and round and round.
Yeah.
How many times?
Doesn't go anywhere.
I don't have to ride that thing 100 times until I realize, wow, that wasn't a lot of fun the second.
And you're throwing up in the trash can next to it.
Definitely the Tommy Twister.
Yeah.
Now I'm dating myself. I don't know if Tommy Twister. But once again, this is an attack on the people.
Yeah.
And I hope those people have eyes to see. Uh, Joanne says, imagine what happens in 2026 if we have every precinct filled with an elected PC. It can change the local Republican organizations and the state central committee. Actually, I send a link. Ryan, you know what I'm going to do for Thursday? Hey, Joanne, if you're available, I'd love to have you on the screen with us because I'd like you to take some of this distance. I get tired of hearing myself ramble. It was a lot more fun on the radio, right?
Yeah.
Um, Things were happening, excited, but really, I'm glad that God moved me out of that because were we truly moving the needle? Was
Right.
Cap truly moving the needle in the position of Cap Peterson, morning Cap? Was Kevin Ferris truly moving the needle on the radio? I mean, no, I think what it takes is activism.
Yeah.
And once again, I'm not making a great fortune with the DPB show. In fact, Ryan, did you get my check? Did you get the check for payment for being on the show?
Nope. Must have been lost in the mail.
Well, I'll make sure that no. In all honesty, Ryan's not paid. I'm not paid.
Yep.
Nor do I really care. I've said this before. I said, God, at one point I'd like to monetize this show. No, I don't want to monetize it. I want people to learn. I
Yeah.
want people to be informed.
Yeah.
I
It's
want,
about the message. Yep.
yeah, I want people to be able to know what's going on. The sad part about it, and Annette, if you're still with us, you can attest to this. Most people were, when they ask people to raise their hands, Joanne says she's available. Thank you, Joanne. I'll get you on. When they ask people to raise their hand, if this was the first convention you were at, how many hands do you think went up out of the 465 delegates that were in there?
I would say over half at least.
At least 2/3, if not greater.
Mm-hmm.
So most people didn't even know about the process. But think about this, and this is a question. I asked Darren Bailey this, and I'm going to continue to ask this question. I find it highly suspicious. I'm not saying there's some conspiracy. Maybe that's the only time they could get the convention center in. Annette says over half. What I thought. In the convention center, maybe that's the only time they could get the convention center in Collinsville was Memorial. Right. But I find it highly suspicious that none of the elected officials from state government, meaning the General Assembly, were able to be in attendance at their own party state convention where they have a super minority. I don't know what they were doing. I mean, they didn't need them to vote.
Right. They were enjoying the long weekend that Democrats said to have.
Yeah. I mean, they would have been better off organizing and coming up with a game plan and a battle strategy as the super minority. They could have left Springfield. I don't know what their obligation is.
That's almost like what they were elected to do, represent the people and build a ground game. I mean, that's kind of why we send people to Springfield for.
Rather than showing up to vote no to a budget?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to push this. We're going to continue to lean in on this. I've got to get to hockey practice for the grandson. But I want to continue this conversation. Please go out, like, share, get other people involved, because ultimately I'd like to have the screen filled, and I'd like, I'm going to get the Tom DeVores and the Darren Baileys and the Peggy Hubbards and the Matt Dubiels and the David Shostokis. You know, David was very
Mm-hmm.
instrumental, just by the way. David was helping Dean White. David was counsel for Dean White. If you don't know who David Shostokis is, go out to his Facebook page.
Yep.
David Shostokis has constitutional sound bites, obviously a constitutional attorney, has done great work across the land of Lincoln, ran for attorney general in the primary, lost to Tom DeVore and Steve Kim. I don't know if David was second vote getter or Steve was second vote getter, but David, I hope David continues to stay around and help in this movement. This grassroots movement is on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Joanne said 327, just a gas, and she's right. It was probably something close to that. And once again, it's a renewed sense of hope. I don't feel like I have to give up and pack up the U-Haul, as so many people have done in Illinois. I can stay. And once again, I wouldn't do that without consulting the man up above. God has shared with me in so many ways this particular convention as one of those signs that we're here to fight. And I know I've got enough people around us that are willing. And thank God that it isn't a huge number so that we could proclaim that it is us that did it, but God.
Right.
I want to see God restore this land, the land of Lincoln. And I know God will restore the land of Lincoln. But what it takes is us turning back to God and away from us.
Yep.
That's how it's going to happen. All right. 4:57. I'm going to run. Thursday, Joanne, you're going to join us. She said she's available. Ryan, you up for Thursday?
Absolutely. I'll be here.
This thing's going to continue to walk out. Once again, if you are on the show today, or if you're watching this on replay, go out to the pages. Darren Bailey, Tom DeVore, Dean White, John Zam. John doesn't. There are many of the political grassroots people.
Mm-hmm.
When I say political, I mean I should just say grassroots. I'm not saying political because there's nothing political about the grassroots. Yep. Dean White has all the money he needs.
Mm-hmm.
As I've said when I was running for state rep, nobody in their right mind should want to be involved in politics in Illinois.
Yeah.
Why? But let's do something different. Let's make Illinois great again. Let's make Illinois the land of Lincoln rather than the land of make-believe. With that, I think that's a good place to end it.
Yep.
And of course, as you know, I don't know how to end as properly as I do when I'm not when I have all my studio in place. So I'm going to try to figure out how to jump off of this. But okay, stream info. Let's see what the stream info is.
I'll be able to let you know end stream somewhere.
Well, that's what I'm looking for, Ryan. Create a banner. Nope, that's not it. Brand. Nope, that's not it. Overlay. Guest. No, there's an end. I see the end button. Okay. With that, as I always say, I love you deeply. Thank you for those of you who join us live on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 to 5. You've already heard the lineup for Thursday. I will try to either get Darren or Tom or maybe even Dean White to jump on board Thursday. And if not, I know Dean will join us on the StreamYard, the DPB show, maybe soon to be named something other than the DPB show. But know that I love you, but Jesus loves you more. So until Thursday, I bid you farewell.